Welcome back to Common Ground, an inside look at Suffolk County. I'm your host, Sheriff Steve Tompkins. Now, on this side of the program, we've got a dynamic, vibrant young man, Jack Kelly. And, you know, I got to tell you, I've heard so much about this guy. I've bumped into him. I've tried to catch up to him. He's tried to catch up to me. We just haven't been able to contact each other by phone. So I'm so glad and thankful that he came to the program today to talk to us about where he stands on issues of importance to you and why you should consider giving him one of your votes to be one of the next citywide councilors. Jack?
Sheriff, no,
really
my pleasure. Thank you.
So listen, what made you decide to run for office?
What made me decide to run for office? The question that I'm asked every single day.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, I mean, why I ran for office was because I think that some of the things that I've been through in my own life and some of the things that I've seen in my professional experience sort of has given me an insight into things that I feel that I can be a voice for a lot of people and have a handle on some issues that I think are very effective, you know, impactfully, negative or positively throughout the city. So I want to have a voice, and I think I can be a good leader with that.
Now, you know, the great thing about the city council is that really it is that formal municipal government that is that first line.
Right.
You know, that's where people go to their city councilors. And so when you talk about things that have happened in your life and lives of people that you know, it sounds as if you can relate to the common man and the common woman and really be an advocate for them, if I'm understanding you correctly. You know, is that how you feel in your heart?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent replication of what I'm trying to do. I think that, you know, I do bring an element of the everyday person who's in the city of Boston, and I also think that I can relate to a lot of different economic, you know, stereotypes of barriers where people are, you know, with the person making six figures in Beacon Hill and, you know, the person who's really struggling out there, and no matter what culture or what, you know, skin class they are or anything. I believe that I can talk to anybody, and I don't look at people for anything more than just what they are and who their issues are. And being at City Hall, working for the mayor as the neighborhood liaison, doing constituent work, helped me really understand that, you know, the pothole on the street in the South End is just as important as, in some ways, to a degree, some of the serious, more, you know, global issues that we see when it comes to the big things that I care about, like, you know, substance abuse and violence and, you know, that type of stuff. So all of it's relatable, you know, to have a, you know, city that I think is working in conjunction with one another. You need the weakest part to be pretty strong, or otherwise the strongest part will eventually become weak.
So tell the audience, what are the top 2 or 3 issues is it for you? Is it education? Is it public safety? Is it the economy? Where do you come down on these issues? In your travels when you're talking to people?
Right. Great question. So for me, I look at all of those 3 things that you talked about as my most important things why I'm running, and I think a lot of people consider those to be the top issues, and we see it in the mayor's race, we see it in our race. But I actually see them as related. I don't think that they're separate things that are in a vacuum. I look at the city as an ecosystem that has to be working in a sort of systematic way that is beneficial and efficient, and that is circling in a non-disruptive sense. And I think when you have too much disruption, then it hurts all of those parts. The school system, in my opinion, is sort of where I'm coming from as a city council candidate. Neighborhoods have to be healthy if we want to have a really good school system. I'm a big advocate for that, and I have my opinions on, you know, advanced placement in all schools and district charter, non-charter, lifting the cap. I have my opinions on all of that, but I'm really coming at it from a standpoint that if we fix the neighborhoods, it's going to be much easier to fix the school system.
And how do we fix the neighborhoods?
We need to go to levels of every neighborhood that's economically depressed, the way I see it, or socially depressed is another term we could use. We have to go and see what the root of the problem is. Now, look, you know, places like, you know, Mattapan or parts of Dorchester or even in Charlestown where we have a lot of issues with substance abuse, and sometimes in places like Mattapan or, you know, Roxbury, there's issues of violence. It's not everybody, and I come from a neighborhood that historically has always had a reputation of having, you know, sometimes negative stereotypes. So it's always, I don't like throwing a blind sort of rope around any neighborhood or issue, because it's not true. It's not everybody. There's good people who care about their community, who work hard in every community. However, the issues are real, and it's, you know, it's transformational, it's generational with, you know, poverty and violence. They're all related, and mental health issues. So one of the big things that I'm focusing on is going at mental health, because we have too many people shooting each other and shooting heroin. Way too many people, and it's an issue that I don't think people are comfortable talking about, but it's an issue that's real. It's not an issue that I think sometimes people assume that is not as big as they think it is. It's something that, you know, for a long time, politicians, community leaders have had a difficult time talking about it because it's, let's face it, it's not comfortable. Who wants to talk about it? And we want to all talk about how great a city Boston is, which it is. But at times, there sometimes feels like there's two different Bostons. And we need to make sure that there's one Boston.
Yeah, but you know, and I agree with you. And where I come down on this is, look, that's what our public advocates are supposed to do. You know, our public advocates are supposed to be working on behalf of the people that sent them to office. You know, and so that's why I have like a big problem with this government shutdown. Really, the people don't want that. So what are we doing here? You know, I mean, that's just it's mind-boggling. It's unfathomable to me that politicians would actually get mired in whatever it is their own individual pettiness, okay, and not get the people's work done. So it sounds like you're coming from a place where you're saying, and you tell me, and I don't want to speak for you, that elected officials are the public advocates, that are the lobbyists for people.
Yes,
okay?
I like that.
Right? I mean, corporations and companies and other entities have lobbyists. Who are our lobbyists?
We should be.
That's right. Our elected officials are lobbyists. And so that's why, I'm heartened by the fact that so many new faces, frankly, got into this race on both the city council side and on the mayor side, because that's going to bring a new, young, fresh vibrancy that's been lacking. And I agree with you. I think Boston is a great city. I think it's one of the best on the planet, frankly, but it's only as strong as its weakest link or its weakest legislator.
Right.
Okay.
It's fun. Listen, I'm so glad that you talked about weak, as big as its weakest link, but also talking about the legislative process. And I call myself in some ways a pragmatic progressive, because I am someone who has very principled stands, but we need to get work done. So whatever my opinions are on every aspect of details of any contract or any sort of piece of legislation that I'm thinking about passing, if I can't get my colleagues to agree with me, and if I can't get the new incoming mayor to sign off on it, it's useless. And what am I doing for the people that elected me, who are now, as you coined it, as the lobbyists of the people? I'm not doing them fair justice. So, I think that you have to come into it and say, look, we have to be adults, and we have to make sure that this isn't about me, this isn't about you, this isn't about the mayor as an individual or what they're running on. It's about the people. And what we see in Washington, the dysfunction there is insane to me. It's absurd. And I tend to look at it as an issue that I probably would be blaming one side, but even getting into that argument sometimes diminishes sort of this thing that we have going on where people don't care about that. When I ran for office, someone once told me, all the people that you see on a daily basis who are really community driven and leaders of their community are a very small portion of society. Most people are going to work every day, they're picking their kids up, they're worried about themselves and the daily stuff that they got going on in their lives. And the only time sometimes they hear about us is when we're doing something wrong. And unfortunately, we're doing way too much wrong now.
I don't mean to laugh, but you're right.
It's the truth.
Which begs the bigger question also, or another question is the responsibility of the media. Clearly, I mean, I get it. The media, television, radio, print, business entities built to make money. I get that, but the airwaves and the newspapers is supposed to talk about what's important for people. And I think that once we got all of the cable TV stations and the proliferation of all of this mass media, it almost seems as if it's more important to get the scoop than to get the story right.
I would even say to slant the scoop as opposed to get the scoop. And that's, I think, where it's even terrifying at this point, because you're right. The whole point of the freedom of speech, sometimes I think we get lost in what some of the things, those things even were written, what they mean. The whole point of it is to freedom of press, to give people information that is unobjective and unbiased, to give people the option to take the information and do what they will with it. And right now, I'm seeing it in our race. It's not being covered because I've talked to some reporters and they say, well, it's really not that interesting. And my thing is, really, it's not that interesting because we have over 100 people who've been shot. We have development issues with the BRA, and guess what? We vote on that as a city council. And for people to say, well, it's really not that interesting, or it's not going to sell newspapers, so therefore let's not cover it, is an absurd statement, and it's malpractice for the media. And I'm not trying to get in trouble because we're being covered, and I want them to say nice things about me, obviously. But I'm running, when I run for office, and I think you can sympathize with this, we have to be doing it for a reason. If we're coming up here and we have nothing to say, what's the point of doing this? And these are important issues to people. And people say, well, the turnout wasn't that low. The turnout was too low. I don't know why it was low. Well, it was low because it wasn't covered. If the media is not really making an emphasis on covering it, well, then it's not going to be covered. And, they say, well, there's no TV ads and there's no, well, lower level candidates, even, we see with the mayor and in our race, a lot of people have raised a good amount of money, but comparatively speaking to something like a presidential race where there's billions and billions of dollars raised and they can do just soap TV with advertising, sure, you're going to get a bigger turnout because people feel like it's bigger. It's much more urgent to people, where they look at a local race as just not that important, which if you really look at it, in some ways, we're more impactful on people's daily lives than the president is.
Oh, yeah, that goes back to that thing I said earlier about being the first line of municipal government,
right.
Clearly. But you know what? I will also offer you this. In tough fiscal budgetary times, when you eliminate certain parts of curriculum, school curriculum, i.e. I'm speaking about civics right now, okay? When you eliminate civics... I love
where you're going with this, by
the way. Okay?
Yep.
You eliminate what it means to be a part of community. You eliminate what government really means and what it's set up to do, and you also eliminate what it means to vote. Okay, so now, if you're taking civics out of the middle schools, the elementary schools, the civics, the middle schools and the high schools, then you've got generations of people growing up that really don't know what we're talking about and how impactful and how important it is because they weren't taught it, you know? And you have to teach it. I mean, clearly the media has a job to do and legislators have a job to do, but I think when you talk about the first line in municipal government, well, the first line to me in school is clearly once you get past the 3 R's, the reading, the writing, the arithmetic, you need the arts, you need civics, and you need the physical education. And those are and music, okay, culture. You eliminate those 4 things. You eliminate culture, you eliminate physics, you eliminate PE. Well, you know, you've handicapped your society.
Yeah, we're not robots.
Okay.
Right.
But what's happening is we become a service society,
That's right.
Okay? And robots really do a lot of the stuff that people used to do.
That's true.
So where do we go?
Where do we go? I think you need good elected officials who are coming from a place that is going to defend some of that stuff. I mean, one of the things that I talk about, and it's a much bigger, sometimes a bigger discussion than a city council race. Sometimes it's a federal discussion. But we talk about our, you know, when we look at our labor situation, we don't really produce anything anymore in America. And, you know, we have a much, you know, I know a lot of people who are bartenders who have a law degree. And, you know, we have cab drivers who have, because you have to survive, you have to eat, you know, you're going to put a roof over your head, so you're going to do whatever it takes in the immediate to make that happen. And we have a society built now on service, as you stated. And that's a problem. And you need, in my opinion, you can fix it on a lower level because you can pass ordinances at the city council to make sure that, you know, buy local programs and, you know, whenever we're investing in our economy, we make sure that the money and the jobs stay local and that we're emphasizing that we won't let you build unless you're originating from some element of something that's made in America. That's ways that we can do stuff like that to help the broader sense of our country, which then, you know, filters at some point into the city of Boston. Because if we don't create anything and we're not building anything and we're not paying anyone a decent wage, who cares? And I would make the case that you travel down that path too long, there's not going to be anybody to go to a restaurant, so there's not going to be any waitresses anyway. You know, because you can't pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so when you talk about the things that we're discussing right now, I go back to the infusion of new personalities like yourself. You know, before you got into this race, you know, you and I probably passed each other a bunch of times, but never saw each other.
Right.
Once, you know, you staked out a piece of turf that's now going to be that area that you're going to stand on. That's your bully pulpit, okay? And you're going to talk about these issues, and you're going to talk about these issues continuously. Well, that, I believe, is one of the tenets to a vibrant civic engagement.